There's a lot of songs about sun, Silver Sunlight, Hail the Sunrise, One Nation, One Sun, Golden Light. I find that a little odd. There's a little too much sun stuff going on there.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason, Joe, and Crams are here, and we are bringing you a record review today. We're talking about the new Uriah Heep record called Chaos and Color. I don't know how many records this is for them. They've got a ton, and they've been pumping out a lot lately, even. You guys have a lot of experience with Uriah Heep. Uriah Heep was one of my dad's favorite bands, so I heard them a lot growing up. I haven't heard a ton of their more recent stuff, though.
This is my first Uriah Heep record. I really only know the hits and some other stuff. It's my first one. This is my introduction to Uriah Heep through and through.
I know a couple because we did 72 and 82 deep dives, listened to Demons and Wizards and Magician's Birthday for 72, and then Abominog for 82. And I liked everything I heard, but I've not heard anything else. So maybe I just listened to the best three and certainly have not kept up with their output into the 21st century. So this was my fourth Uriah Heep. So 70s, 80s, 2023.
These records from these like legacy acts are always interesting. We've reviewed a couple on the channel recently, and I don't think I've really been a fan of any of them that much. Maybe a bit. I mean, if you're counting like Elvis Costello in the same pool, then yeah, maybe. But if you're going back to like the earlier 70s people, yeah, a lot of the stuff I've heard recently hasn't been great. This one I think actually sounds a lot better than I expected it to. I think the production on it's at least decent. I think it's well produced. I think it rocks pretty hard. I think the band's playing well. I think Bernie Shaw, who's been there since like 89, I think was the first record he was on, The Raging Silence. He's their longest serving singer. I think he still sounds really strong vocally. For me, where this album falters is the songwriting. I don't think there's a lot going on here that's very memorable, even though there's like some like cool stuff happening in the playing. I wouldn't say there's like any memorable riffs or anything that's really going to stick with me that much. I think there's very little dynamics on the record, which hurt it. It's pretty balls to the wall most of the time, and then there's like some ballads which are quieter, and I suppose that's the kind of intended to give you that sort of dynamic flow. But within the tracks, there's very little changing, not enough nuance, I think. So I don't think it really comes anywhere close to their great 70s stuff. You do still have like some killer rock organ all over it. I think the organ playing's great. The guitar solo on "You'll Never Be Alone" is really badass. I think it's awesome. There's some killer bass. The bass breakdown thing on "Freedom to Be Free" is really cool. So it's not like terrible. I don't think it's a total train wreck or anything like that, but it's just kind of boring, kind of long. And I mean, if this is really the sound you're after, it'll scratch that itch. If you're just like jonesing for like Deep Purple to sound like Deep Purple in the 70s, this kind of sounds like that. But, I think what Deep Purple has done better than Uriah Heep lately is they've dared to explore new territory. They've taken some chances. They have fallen on their face a little bit from time to time. But I think that's more interesting than this kind of just almost like stock rock and roll. So for me, it's a 2.5-star record. It's fine, and I think certain people will be a fan of it, but not something I'll go back to. Just not enough in the way of good songwriting.
I mostly agree. I do think the production is much better than what we've heard from, say, Jethro Tull or Blue Oyster Cult or even the last Deep Purple record. Like, it doesn't have that synthetic, like, fake sounding instruments. Like, everything here sounds really good. The organ especially kind of washes away like any nitpicky stuff you'd have because it's just so full on every track. It's just right there. It sounds great. It's Phil Lanzon, he and Bernie Shaw came into the band around the same time, 86. First album was 89. And then you have Mick Box, of course, on guitar, the only original member left, and he sounds fantastic. I think the riffs are really good. The guitar solos are great. The tone on the guitar is fantastic. He really, between him and Phil on organ. Like that's really what you're listening for. And both do a great job. There's some killer solos, some back and forth stuff that they do. You know, it sounds great. I like that. I can listen to that all day. I'm not a big fan of Bernie Shaw, and the vocals are just like kind of getting to like old guy classic rock stage where it's like not a lot of power. He sounds old, and I don't know. They're not playing like a type of music that befits like that type of voice. So I think he's hanging on. He's fine. He doesn't kill it for me. But there's not a lot of dynamic or anything there, and the vocals, drums and bass, like you said, are pretty good. And yeah, the songwriting itself, I think, is probably the weakest part. It seems like a lot of these songs are just sort of like templates, and like you stick in the great guitar and organ work. And if you took that away, it would be like very generic, like modern, almost prog rock sounding, uh, classic rock, whatever. And there's a lot of songs about sun, silver sunlight, hail the sunrise, one nation, one sun, golden light. I find that a little odd. There's a little too much sun stuff going on there. You have kind of like the stock fantastical lyrics and bombast on something like "You'll Never Be Alone," which, I mean, is not a lot to say about the songs. Like, no one's gonna like read the lyrics and be like, "Whoa, wow, what a great lyrical, flourish that was." And that's not what people are looking for these albums. You want Mick Box and some sweet organ from Phil Anzon, and it delivers. And I don't know. I'm I feel like I got to go 3.5 because I like it a lot more than any of the 3-star Deep Purple and Jethro Tull stuff that we reviewed on the channel lately. So I think I'm gonna go like a low 3.5 because I really do think Mick Box can still shred, and he's great on this album, and I think I would listen to it just for that and the organ.
Well, the organ is pretty good, and that's the last nice thing I will say about this album. And we gotta start checking our adjectives here, gentlemen. None of this guitar playing is fantastic and killer and badass. Like it's fine, but it's just pretty generic rock. I mean, this is nothing that the 14-year-old who's been taking 3 years worth of lessons at Guitar Center can't do now. Like, let's just chill out a little bit. I'm with Joe. Bernie Shaw might be one of the worst rock singers I've ever heard in my life. I see nothing admirable about this guy. The best thing he's got going for him is he kind of sounds like the New York Rangers play-by-play announcer. And his name is close to Bernard Shaw, who's one of the better television journalists of the last 50 years. But that's it. So he just sounds like he's like limping through these songs and like doesn't even try to get it up. It's not good. I don't think any of the riffs are memorable. I think it kind of gets into that thing where there's a little too much like the drums are pretty boring, and then there are times where there's like the double bass kick drum, and it's just like, okay, cool, yeah, here we go. I don't really like the production on this. I don't like the way it sounds. I think it's really missing some high end here. I think the licks are pretty elementary. And like what Jason was saying about even when Deep Purple has released some stuff over the last 10, 15 years and kind of fallen flat on her face, there are no risks on this album whatsoever. And, at least be daring and do something and fail. And to me, this album's kind of like timeless in a bad way. I mean, it's 2023, but if you just put it on and said this is their album from 1998, I would not doubt you for a second because it is just so flat and could be just any generic rock album from all time. From any time, you get a little bit of hard rock, a little bit of prog, a little bit of that metal sounding stuff, like in the jam session, little solo in Silver Sunlight. But it feels so just kind of like lame and boring. It feels like it's like a made up band for a movie, the way that like Steel Dragon is for that Mark Wahlberg, and they feel like they could be that band where it's just like song someone written for a movie about a rock band that doesn't exist and they're totally fictional. You'll Never Be Alone has a really cool piano part to it. I did like that. That's one of the things that stood out to me, but it has some of the lamest, corniest vocals and lyrics. Fly Like an Eagle is okay. Like I like that big 70s kind of late 70s prog rock synth coming in there. I wish there was more of that with the organ too. You get some of like those Deep Purple hard organ keys that I like. But you can kind of tell this album is going to suck just by the song titles. Like, unless you're the Darkness now, I don't think anyone should really be going for these just generic, uplifting, like heroics from the sky kind of deal. There wasn't a song on here I liked. I don't think any of the instrumentation stood out to me. I didn't all around hate it, but I did not like it. And that's where it falls with me as 2 stars. I do give 1 star to Bernie Shaw, though. I find nothing interesting about this guy as a lead singer at all.
Didn't you have a bunch of good things to say about the last Jethro Tull record?
Yes, because I liked it.
Interesting. I mean,
this is nowhere nearly as good or interesting as the Jethro Tull album from last year. Please give me some cred in the comments for coming out with this. Jethro Tull's newest album is so much better than this Uriah Heep album.
The playing and the production on this record is far better. You could argue maybe the songwriting is better on the Tull.
I'm arguing for everything about Jethro Tull.
I think the thing I like least about this album is the cover looks like a generic stock photo on top of another generic stock photo with that color explosion over that guy looking up. It irks me as a budding designer.
It looks like an ad for like one of those color runs or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
All right, so let us know what you thought of this record. If you listened to it, drop it down in the comments. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe if you've not subscribed to the channel yet, hit the bell for notifications, and check the video description for links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find our website there, our Patreon, and our merch store. Check it all out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.